Hey guys, 20-something who listens to American football here to tell you about his really interesting alternative music taste. This is a video about my top 10 favorite albums of 2019, and you're probably thinking to yourself, hey guy, you have 0 subscribers and also no other videos, so I have absolutely no reason to listen to what you have to say. And fair point. The reason that I'm posting this on YouTube is because if I were to post my top 10 albums on my personal Instagram story, which is what I wanted to do, I would probably get a response like this. So I decided to throw my opinion into the void of the internet where I could either get a lot of validation or have my opinion ripped into 1,000 tiny little pieces. Okay, so another valid concern you're probably having is that I have no other videos about music because I have no other videos in general, so there's no precedent for me ranking these types of things. I would explain to you how I rate an album, but there's not a lot of concrete factors, so I'm just going to explain it when I talk about each one. So now that I've given you absolutely no concrete information, we're just going to get right into it with number 10. Sing lullaby. Okay, so number 10 is Jesse Volume 2 by Jacob Collier. I really like this album because Jacob Collier usually makes music that sounds like this. And then he decided to make an album that sounds like this. Tolerance your weary head. Take your wings and go to bed. I think that Jacob is an absolutely incredible musician and he deserves way more attention than he gets. But he's definitely not an artist that I would ever be like, oh yeah, throw on Jacob Collier Flintstones remix. I was always impressed by him. I would show him to my friends. I would talk about him with my dad who loves jazz music. But it was never really a thing that I just wanted to hear all the time. It was more just like this, whoa, spectacle, really cool thing. With this album, there's a lot of just really beautiful songs that I find myself wanting to listen to all the time. Make Me Cry is probably top 5 favorite songs of the entire year. I love it. And I think that he really just stripped back a lot of the bells and whistles and made something that's just super listenable, really gorgeous, and I don't know, it's just really great. Okay, number 9 is Only Diamonds Cut Diamonds by Vegan. This is like an electronic IDM infused kind of thing. And it was between this album and Like the River Loves the Sea by Joan Shelley. Both of which I used for study music at first and kind of nothing else until I realized that this Vegan album was really good. So I go to school in New York City, which means that once this album came out, it was pretty much raining or snowing every single day afterwards until the end of the year. And it is the perfect soundtrack for it. It's really dark and kind of simple, but it's also mixed so well and it just sounds so clean. A lot of the songs are super catchy, even though there's a lot of them. I was a fan of Vegan's last album, but the thing about that album is it's like 70 songs that are all 40 seconds. So it's not really memorable. It's kind of just like a thing that you put on, I guess. This album, I feel like I know a lot of the songs really well. I think they're really good, and they just totally fit the mood of my last couple months at school. Also, I'm a really big fan of subtle concept albums, if that makes sense. Like Good Kid, Mad City, obviously there's like a story we get from like point A to point B to point C. But with this album, it's kind of like everything just sits in this mood and it's intertwined by all these voice memos about addiction and loss and death. And it all just kind of ties it into this weird mood where it feels like you're watching a story, but it's told through like a collection of paintings instead of, I don't know, a movie or a short film. And I think it's super interesting and I love it. If you like electronic music, check it out.
In the studio, I was just playing. You were all working, I was all playing. You were talking business.
Okay, so number 8 is 1000 Gex by 100 Gex. This was an amazing year for hyperpop, PC music, whatever you want to call it. We had Dorian Electra, Slater, Charlie XCX, She Who Must Not Be Named. Mostly I like this album because it kind of encapsulates everything that I like about the whole PC music hyperpop thing, which is it's really well produced. Shout out to Dylan Brady. It's catchy, it's fun, it mixes like 1,000 genres, but also there's like kind of this tint of like irony and fun that goes into the whole thing where you kind of get that it's a joke, but like it's still good, so that makes it really fun. I had the privilege of seeing 1000 Gex live, which was like one of the most insane shows that I've ever been to, and they're great live and I think they just deserve the world, so everyone stream 1000 Gex. Also, something really cool about them is I feel like I could play Money Machine or Ringtone for like most people and they would kind of get into it, so I had a lot of fun showing people just this ridiculous music this year. up at number 7, we have House of Sugar by Sandy Alex G. And like, I get it. This is kind of another Year 20 and White thing. This was actually my introduction to Alex G though. I heard Gretel, which is one of my favorite songs of the year. I couldn't stop playing it. I heard Southern Sky next, which I love to death. And then I heard Hope, which I loved. So I got really excited for this album because I thought it was going to be a lot of like pretty folk songs that I was just going to listen to when I was feeling homesick. But it actually ended up being kind of strange. Like the album came out and I heard, what is the first song? Walk Away and like Taking and Project 2 or whatever. And I was like, ooh, this is gross. But then I actually got the concept of the album, the whole like Hansel and Gretel abandonment story and how like Hope is about losing a friend to drug addiction and all these things. And it just kind of hit me and I ended up loving it, listened to it all the time. I think it's testament to how the context of an album really matters. Like once I got the story, I ended up enjoying it a lot more because I was appreciating the abrasive songs more than I was when I was just hoping for some folk music.
So wake up, would you love it when we make love? Go everywhere, my make
At number 6, we have Thank You Next by Ariana Grande. I had this at number 10 originally because I don't think that it's the best music I've listened to this year, but I think it would be a crime to put it at number 10 because I literally listened to this album to death. I was looking at my Last FM the other day from last year, and all my artists have between like 100 and 300 plays on all of them, and then Ariana Grande has 500 plus. I listened to this album nonstop and saw her on tour and like had a real Ariana Grande moment. So I was like, oh, it was fun and I listened to it a lot. It should be on the list, but it's 10 because it's not that good. But then I was like, that's really unfair to all the effort that this album has in it. This album is mixed so well. Like it sounds like the drums are literally in your head the entire time. It's so catchy. It's well written. Ariana's vocal performances are insane. And I think that this was the year that it's like, I don't need to make excuses for liking things, and Thank You Next is just so catchy, so good, and just gave a really cool insight into Ariana's life that, I don't know, I just ended up loving it. I don't think it's as good as Sweetener because I think the highs of Sweetener are better than any of the highs on Thank You Next. Like, God is a Woman is kind of just, you know, or No Tears Left to Cry, like you can't beat them. But I do think that this album is way more consistent than Sweetener, and I really like it for that. Like, it's just it's a that you can put on when you know you're feeling kind of down or whatever, and it will just lift you right up, and it's great.
Pace the palace wing, dethrone king, jump when the phone ring. Egyptian cotton, but you
Number 5, we have Hiding Places by Billy Woods and Kenny Segal, which is my only hip-hop release that's on my top 10 this year. Last year, because of the whole Kanye thing and Travis Scott, I feel like my list was entirely hip-hop. And this year I ended up exploring a lot more, but Billy Woods just snagged me right back in. I ended up listening to this album all the time. This album hits a lot of points for me that are like, feel like they're specifically targeted at me. Like the beats are weird, but they're not that weird. Like they're weirdly constructed normal beats. So it's like it's easy to get into the grooves. It's easy to know every song by itself, but they're still made up of a bunch of weird sounds that just sound amazing. I think Billy Wood's delivery is like probably my favorite part of the album. I love rappers that have a really distinct delivery. That's why I love Pusha T so much, because it's just his voice on a song is so commanding. Also, I think the imagery and the lyricism that Billy uses are like really effective. I'm a big fan of kind of like dark, ironic, humorous, but also kind of sad imagery. There's a lot of like military imagery. There's a lot of really clever moments. Pretty much, I think I'm just going to be revisiting this album and catching a new thing every time, even though it feels like I'm just listening to my favorite song. If you haven't heard about this one, definitely go check it out. It's great, and SpongeBob is like one of the most memorable album openers. Okay, next one is a big one. Number 4 is Titanic Rising by Wise Blood. Everyone was talking about it, took all of music internet by storm, and I love it as well. It's beautiful. A Lot's Gonna Change is easily my favorite song of the year. It means a lot to me. I think it's incredible. There's definitely a lot of 60s and 70s kind of worship on this album. It definitely has that vibe. But I think that Wise Blood's songwriting, her gorgeous voice, and just the really detailed instrumentals make this album just so much more than like bringing back that nostalgia to the past, you know? I think it trails off a little bit after Movies. I think the songs are a little bit long. But I think from A Lot's Gonna Change to Movies, it's pretty much a perfect album, and I would recommend this one to anyone.
You open the door to another door, to another door, to another door, to another door.
Okay, home stretch from the final three. Number 3 for me has gotta be Pang by Caroline Polachek. I was obsessed with this album. I had never heard of Caroline Polachek before this album. I heard So Hot You're Hurting My Feelings because it was recommended to me by a friend, and I was obsessed with it. I thought it was a load of fun. I thought it was really catchy, but I kind of thought that the whole album would be like that. I just thought that was her thing until I heard Look At Me Now, I think was the next single after that, and I was like, whoa, wait a minute, we're doing like this kind of emotional. So then the album comes out, and I literally listened to only Pang for 3 days nonstop. Like, it's one of those hidden gems where an album or an artist you've never heard of, you just listen to it, and every song you're like, wait, this is my favorite one, wait, this is my favorite one, wait, this is my favorite one. There are a ton of just addictingly good pop songs on this album, but they all do something just so interesting. Like, New Normal kind of fluctuates in the keys the whole time. There's a lot of insane vocal processing where like it feels like Caroline's voice is jumping in and out of the auto-tune for some of the songs. There's just such an amazing mood. It's like really empowering, it's really catchy, and it's just such a great album overall. I wish that everyone listened to Caroline Polachek. At the runner-up spot, I have Assumed Form by James Blake. This was not the most groundbreaking album of the year. It's a pretty digestible mix of electronic music, R&B, and hip-hop. But I think that actually really worked in James's favor for just making a bunch of really, really well-written songs. I think this album got a lot of flack because it wasn't experimental enough compared to his older work. But I think that he was able to keep everything so concise and simple and just write beautiful songs that I've been coming back to this album since it came out, and that's pretty much the only album that came out at the beginning of the year that I've been listening to the entire time. I think that obviously James Blake's voice is beautiful. I think the songwriting is fantastic, and I kind of hope that he stays with this direction, but if not, this will be just kind of like my little treasure album that I love for a while. Okay, so before we get to number 1, I'm just going to shout out some honorable mentions, and then we'll be done with the video. Okay, so honorable mentions for me include The Wizard by Future, which was amazing, When I Get Home by Solange, Flamboyant by Dorian Electra, Magdalene FKA Twigs, Good at Following the Japanese House, and literally everything by Drain Gang this year. It was amazing, specifically E by Echo 2K, which Frank Ocean stopped dropping singles after E came out, and I think it's because he heard it and went, oh, this is what I wanted my album to sound like, can't do it now, and then stopped. Okay, and number 1, drumroll please, Schlagenheim by Black Midi, hands down. This album, compared to other ones on the list, I probably didn't listen to it as much, but it completely opened the doors for me to listen to a ton more experimental music this year. I think it's because on Album of the Year it was just getting so many good ratings that I decided I had to check it out. And it's like, I just love it. It's perfect for me. It's the right amount of aggression, it's the right amount of experimental, it's the right amount of just cool sounding songs, it's the right amount of catchy, like I can remember all the riffs from all the songs. And I just love it. It sounds like an Aliens in your head, just kind of trying to explode out of it, but like in a good way. Like, it feels good. I got to see Black Midi live, and they were incredible. They basically just jammed on all their songs for like 9 minutes, and it was a crazy mosh, even though no one had ever heard the music before. It was such a blast. I think these guys are amazing, and I hope they get a lot more exposure in 2020 and beyond. Okay, so that's it. The end of my first YouTube video. You can subscribe, like, if you want to, but I'm probably not going to make more music content. I just had to do something, and I feel like vlogging would have been horrific. It's like, did you hate all the albums that I liked? Did you like the albums that I liked? What are some recommendations? I don't know. I just want to talk to more people on here and see what they think. So that's that. Subscribe if you want to, and I'll make another video about something soon, hopefully.